there was a study that came out about 3 weeks ago now, and it was titled Outcomes of Hydroxychloroquine Usage in United States Veterans Hospitals with COVID-19. So it was 368 patients, and essentially they found higher mortality rates in ventilator use for hydroxychloroquine patients. This is a big deal because Trump touted this, and people were starting to use this. The Department of Veterans Affairs had major contracts they were given into the veterans in the veteran homes. So you started to see headlines. Veterans were concerned. VA hospitals were concerned. Veterans worried about the risks. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer criticized the Department of Veteran Affairs for even using this thing. So, I mean, the backlash was almost instant.
Right.
We go to a French doctor who's kind of been out front on this, Didier Raoult. His paper, he had a response to this. He published a paper in response to this Veterans Affairs study, and he noted a couple things in this study. So one of them, let me first say, lymphopenia is a reduced amount of white blood cells. Those are those white blood cells that fight infection. So in Didier Raoult's paper, he quoted and he said, lymphopenia is twice as common in the hydrochloroquine groups, 25% in HCQ, 31% in the HCQ and AZ, that's azithromycin group, versus 14% in the non-HCQ group. And there is an absolute correlation between lymphopenia and fatality rate, which is well known and confirmed here. 28% deaths, 22%, and 11% in the HCQ plus AZ, and no HCQ group, respectively. Lymphopenia is the most obvious criterion of patient severity. So what does that all mean? In short, the people that were getting hydroxychloroquine had immune systems that were shot by their white blood, as described by their white blood cell count. Another issue in this paper, in this Veterans Affairs paper, was that 30% of the untreated group received azithromycin. So this is a tainted. Right. This is a tainted group of patients here that were supposed to be untreated.
Yeah, it's almost like they were rigging the study, but it's getting worse now, isn't it? It doesn't stop there.
No, it doesn't. And last data point on that, Scott Sutton, one of the authors of the paper, had received funding. His conflicts of interest were from Gilead's remdesivir maker, Gilead. That's the company. He had funding that he received from them. So that's a final data point on that paper. But now we go to the bigger story. So the media ran a hydrochloroquine story after this. And this is Time Magazine. I pulled this headline: a large study finds no benefit and potential harm is using hydrochloroquine for COVID-19. This is a gigantic study, we're meant to believe. Observational study analyzing more than 96,000 people hospitalized with confirmed COVID-19. 671 hospitals over 6 continents. This is enormous. This study concluded that HCQ group dying at higher rates and experiencing more heart-related complications. So essentially right after that, the WHO, looping them back into this story, the WHO halted its hydrochloroquine trials. Now, they had trials, they were called a solidarity trial. The WHO was recruiting patients from more than 400 hospitals in 35 countries. So let me pause right there. This paper that came out, it was published in the Lancet, over 671 hospitals that they grabbed data from. The WHO, in its infinite reach, can only take 400 hospitals. They can only find 400 hospitals to recruit patients from. So who did this study? My gosh, this is an incredible study. At the center of this study was a corporation called Surgisphere. This corporation at the center of this study, there was inconsistencies when people dug into this. This was medical professionals all around the world, sleuths, journalists, everybody are calling it out. There's inconsistencies in the data from the national registries of the hospitals they used. The Lancet's peer review process completely overlooked this. And it's all being controlled. This data is all being controlled by this company named Surgisphere. So before we even get into the Lancet paper, let me just quickly start with some issues with the company prior to the Lancet study they did. So its LinkedIn page has fewer than 100 followers. That was last week.
Wow.
And just 6 employees. That was changed to about 3 employees this week. It claims to run one of the largest and fastest hospital databases in the world. Its Twitter handle has 170 followers, and no posts between October 2017 and March 2020. So that's fine. Twitter doesn't equate to scientific integrity. Its website, until Monday, its Get in Touch link on its website, it redirected it to a cryptocurrency website. So people are raising doubts of, well, how do hospitals get in touch with this company if their contact page doesn't even work?
This is technically the greatest data collecting machine the world has ever seen, stretching across continents and hospitals. A massive, massive undertaking. You would think it would have billions of dollars flowing through it from agencies from all over the world, staffs of hundreds, if not thousands, and yet we have LinkedIn with 6 and now 3 people working there. Something stinks, as they say.
Yeah. And let's look at the employees really quick. One of them, now this was reported, I believe, by The Guardian. There's a quote. It says, a search of publicly available material suggests several of Surgisphere's employees have little or no data or scientific background. An employee listed as a science editor appears to be a science fiction author and fantasy artist. Another employee listed as a marketing executive is an adult model and event hostess.
Wow.
So there you go with a company. Now,
you can't make this stuff up. I mean, but if it wasn't so tragic to think that people's lives are hanging in the balance, people not being given hydroxychloroquine because this powerful study was done, and now we find out that behind it, it really is the Wizard of Oz. This thing is an absolute fabricated joke. So the Lancet published it, which means it was peer-reviewed. What did the Lancet, what was it that the Lancet thought was happening here? What did the study say?
Well, the study reports that 63,315 hospitalized patients with COVID-19 met the inclusion criteria in North America. Now, we're going to get into the study here. This is some of the issues with the study.
Okay.
Met the inclusion criteria of the study prior to April 14th, 2020. Now, at that time, there were only 66,000 cases. So this company grabs over 63,000 of the 66,000 cases of COVID-19 in North America and grabbed real-time data on all of these patients and reported that. So we're to believe that this company had relationships with data exchanges with 559 hospitals in North America to grab all this data in real time. Okay. Well, it gets even more interesting. Let's move on to Africa, because this was a worldwide study. Africa had over 15,000 COVID-19 patients reported across the entire continent by the African CDC at the time of the study was capturing the data. The Lancet study here, the Surgisphere study, included detailed health electronic records on over 4,000 of those patients. So here's one of the issues with pulling this stuff out of thin air. The quote from an investigative article says, the study reports patient data from Africa that requires sophisticated patient monitoring technology and electronic medical record systems, cardiac monitoring practices during COVID-19, and the sophisticated equipment necessary to do so make it highly unlikely that cardiac arrhythmia data is available for such a large percentage of patients in Africa. Same thing happened in Australia. The data used in Australia was not readily available by Australian clinical databases. The Guardian reached out to a lot of the official reporting systems in Australia, and they said, we have no relationship with this company. So how they receive this information is gigantic. And then it goes right into an open letter. So we have an open letter to the Lancet and its editor, Richard Horton. It includes 182 signatories, raised 10 issues with the methods and data. Among those 10 issues, here we go. This is Imperial Model Neil Ferguson 101 here. One of the issues with Surgisphere is the authors have not released their code or data. There is no mention of the countries or hospitals that contributed to the data. Requests to the authors for information on the contributing centers were denied. So we don't even have the hospital names. Didier Raoult took to Twitter, as you're seeing right now, and took part of that complaint letter. And he wrote, given the enormous importance and influence of these results, we believe it is imperative that the company, Surgisphere, provides details on data provenance at a very minimum. This means sharing the aggregated patient data at the hospital level for all covariates and outcomes. Number 2, independent validation of the analysis is performed by a group convened by the World Health Organization or at least one other independent and respected institution. This would entail additional analyses to assess the validity of the conclusions. And here we go with the codes. There's an open access to all the data sharing agreements cited above to ensure that in each jurisdiction, any mine data was legal and ethically collected and patient privacy respected. So just this week, the Lancet released an expression of concern about this paper, said it's going to take in effect those recommendations and do an independent study of people outside the Lancet and that don't have any ties to Surgisphere and look at this study. And to put a cap on this story, the WHO announced that it will be resuming its hydrochloroquine studies in the Solidarity trial. So,
Wow.
this thing handicapped the hydrochloroquine studies for quite some time. And moving forward now, this is public knowledge that this is all over the mainstream headlines that hydrochloroquine might be dangerous because of this Surgisphere study.
Yeah.
So how are they going to recruit patients? If they see this, they're going to say, patients might not join these trials anymore.
Yeah, no, and they've been discussing, I've been watching doctors say it's really getting hard to get people in these trials. They're so afraid of the danger of hydroxychloroquine. Of course, you didn't see this on CNN and MSNBC. They were not celebrating that perhaps we were wrong. Maybe we really do have a treatment that, as 200 studies, as we've pointed out, across the world have shown incredible results using hydroxychloroquine. Makes you wonder if somebody doesn't want a treatment to be available, that they don't want a successful treatment, maybe because they think they might find what I call the vaccine unicorn. Jeffrey Jackson, great reporting.
If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of The High Wire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.